Hi everyone, Greg here with Laser Bear to show off assembling the Slotmaster Mark II. This is our new version of the Slotmaster that kind of takes a wildly different approach to the ejection mechanism from the original. We're using a geared cam system instead of a dual action slide cam. The slide cam couldn't handle the stress from tighter connectors that we were getting from our new supplier, well, same supplier, new connectors we were getting from our supplier. So we had to make some changes. So I went with a complete kind of overhaul of this design. So you have these pieces I've laid out in front of you. You have the top section, the bottom section, the card ejector. This is the cover for the cam gears, the pusher. You have two cam linkages and then two cam gears. The cam gears will have left and right on them. And that is your parts. You'll also get some screws for assembly. So in addition to the machine screws that are used to connect the connector to the Slotmaster, you also have these assembly screws for assembling the two halves. So these are 5/8 of an inch long. Number 2 screws for plastic, and then you also have 4 of these little black M2 screws, and I will show you where they go towards the point where that assembly is required. So first off, we need to assemble the bottom half and the top half. So I'm going to set aside all my parts that I don't need, and what we're going to do is we flip the top half down, bottom half flips over, and we will line everything up. Now on this, you'll see this little groove where the screw head goes in to make it easier to screw this into the console. So that lines up to the back half like so. And you take 4 of these guys that have the kind of thicker, heavier thread, and they go into these 4 slots, and they'll line up with some screw holes on the bottom there, or on the top half of the bracket. And I'll probably do this off screen just because it's a little fiddly to run screws in with my camera setup. And these should go in pretty easily. It should be a number 1 Phillips head screwdriver to run them in with. And like I mentioned, these are plastic screws, so these are specifically for screwing into plastics. And just like that, all of those pieces are in. All right, our next step, we're going to put these in just to hold our nuts here. So you have this M3 lock nut. You want to put 1 on each side, and then you use the screw that goes with them just to keep it retained, so you're not fighting it later to try to get in. You can put them in later. I just personally prefer doing it this way so that they're out of the way for me. Now I won't show attaching the cartridge slot. I don't have any of those on standby right now, so I'm just going to show you assembly of the actual bracket and what goes with that. But once you get these 2 guys in, we'll move on to the next part. The next part is where we start using the included grease to kind of help things move inside of the brackets. So what we're going to do next is we need to install the cartridge pusher. Now for this, you'll notice that the holes are off center. You want the holes to be closer to the front of the bracket. So those holes like that, you want it going this direction. So keep that in mind as you're kind of getting everything ready. And so what we're going to do to prep this is we're going to take the grease. You'll get a little thing of grease. I just happen to have a big applicator that we use for doing the assemblies on these things. So because we build quite a few of them. But you just want some grease on this little peg here on either side. And you want to put just a touch of grease in here, and a touch of grease in here. And then you're going to put a dab of grease inside of that socket on both sides. And once that is in, the next step is to insert it into the bracket. This does require flexing the bracket. So what we do is we put it in on one side, we take the bracket, we flex it a little bit until it snaps in. Once it snaps in, I like to just move it through a few times and get it to push that grease into all of the cavities that it's sliding against, because the goal of the grease here is to make it as friction-free as possible. And once you've done that, you can take a rag or anything if you have some grease that's coming out and just wipe the grease away. You don't need the excess grease. It's not gonna hurt anything to get rid of the excess grease. So it's real simple, just like that. Now that we've done that, we're going to flip it over because now we're going to install the gears. So on our gears, we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to put a little bit of grease around this round slot or round peg. And that just to help it spin inside of that slot. And then we're also going to put just a little bit of grease on the face of the gear where it's going to touch here and here. So this is the left side one. And the easiest way to know which side it goes to is we've got a little line here. The line should be at the center of the bracket like that. We're going to do the same thing with this one. And just like that, we can set it in to its spot. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to prep these linkages. So I will pull these gears out to slide them over the linkages, but first things first, a little bit of grease on the linkage. And I'm going to lift the gear out. Put the linkage in. The shorter side of the linkage arm, you'll see that there's a short side and a long side. How well that shows up. You want the short side to go into the cam bracket. And we're going to put just a little bit of grease around the outside of that longer cam. Now that that's in place, we put our gear over top of the cam, and just like that, we can get it to kind of line up. And do the same thing on this other side. And if you want, you can give it a little bit of a twist in its little slot there, just to give it to have a little bit more play into it. And then we do the same thing on this side. All right, and then next we've got the pusher arm. Now the pusher arm has a little line in it, and your goal with the line is when you assemble everything, you want that line to be straight across for the gears and the cam arm. Now what you do is you put the cam arm in at a slight angle, and it should snap kind of in place like that. But before I go too far on it, I do the same thing where I put just a little bit of grease on top, just for a nice smooth sliding action. Flip it around, get it into slots. Now that all of that is in place, I'm just going to take the lube and I'm just going to put a little bit on all of them, just so that when I put the bottom cover on, you'll notice the bottom cover has these little kind of protruding sections. You just want to put a little bit of grease this direction across them. And just like that. And what that does is it helps with the movement of those linkage arms. So then we flip it over. Everything sandwiches together. You just have 4 little screws that you put into the 4 sides here. You do not want to over tighten these. So the goal here is to just get it snug and call it good. And once you have all 4 screws in, you are done assembling the mount. And now the push arm is linked to the bracket. The bracket is linked on both sides. So one of the things that happened before is sometimes you could get it to where it would kind of go a little bit crossed and then it would get stuck. It wasn't very common in the old one, but it did happen to a few users. So this model, that can't happen because everything has to move with the same the same amount of play. So all good's there. You'll notice too, these brackets probably have a little bit of material sitting over the screw holes. I just take my screwdriver and push it up against that and twist it out so that the screw hole will now accept a screw through it. That is like that just so that these print without requiring a ton of additional support material and other considerations during printing. But once you do that part, it's ready to install. You can attach the bracket. You can just back your screws out, put it on, screw them in. Don't tighten them yet. Put a game in. Once a game is installed, then you can tighten them down because the game is going to center that connector in the space. And when you assemble the kit, there is one connector that has a slot in the back half of the plastic. That is the one that you want to attach to the top side of that, just so that you have that extra distance that the cartridge can go in. It's not much, but it's enough that some games get finicky for playability if they can't get all the way in. There's some games with it's kind of called the short pin issue, and there's just no way around having to do that to get compatibility to be pretty much 100%. So, and then the other change with this is we stanced the game so that it actually sits at a slight angle. This allowed for the bracket to sit lower, and the metal RF shielding will now go on top of this a lot easier. Before, sometimes this would hit it, and I wasn't sure if that was every metal bracket or if that was just some of them, because one of my consoles, the metal bracket didn't hit, and that was the one that I originally designed around. So this eliminates that problem completely. So, and once you're done assembling it, I would just cycle it a few times, get it nice and good. You can put some grease in here if you're noticing it's kind of grabbing here. I tend to not, just because sometimes that grease is going to get elsewhere on the console, whereas everywhere else in this is sealed to the point where the grease can't go anywhere. It's going to land on a part that's not going to land on the console. I mean, this grease won't cause issues. It's a silicone-based grease, so it doesn't conduct electricity or anything, but just for a better kind of experience, and it's kind of where that comes in. But thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on our support channels. We are able to help almost every time. It just depends on what the question is. You will notice, like, I have spots here for nuts. Nothing goes in there. That was something that kind of existed when I first started the design, and it turned out I didn't need them. This is so much stronger that it wasn't even an issue. So it was just kind of, maybe I'll need them, maybe I won't. I just left them in there just as a kind of design stake, nice little hexagon shape on them when they're in the correct position or in the closed position like that. But yeah, have a great day.